And another thing, this is more aesthetic, is that my hair was so thin. My hair was falling out, it wasn't growing. I was motivated to start eating more grass-fed beef. So for me, the quality and where I source my food is very important. Of course, there's sometimes when I go out to eat to restaurants and I'm not gonna get super picky, but you know, in my day-to-day, when I'm buying my groceries, the meat that I get is grass-fed. I get wild-caught fish, pasture-raised eggs, all of this. I try to buy local and organic and from the farmer's market and from sustainable and ethical sources. I feel really good. My hair, you guys, my hair has grown back and I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, so I know that my diet now involves paying for the local and ethically sourced exploitation and murder of innocent beings. And I also know that when I go out to restaurants, I'm not so picky and I support factory farming, which is filled with so much suffering. But eating all these innocent animals that didn't want to die has made my hair so amazing. I got my hair back and these animals lost their lives.
Hey, what's up guys? So it's been a while since I've done a video covering an ex-vegan's convoluted ramble, trying to explain why they're no longer vegan. And I'm sure most of you have already seen Rawvana's video going over her experience leaving veganism. You've probably also already seen other vegan YouTubers respond to her. So I'm gonna do the same thing today and give my sort of unique analysis of the video that she dropped. And before I do that, I wanna say that the reason that I cover ex-vegans who make videos like this is because I have a specific issue with people with large platforms convincing people, whether it's their intention or not, that the plant-based diet or the vegan lifestyle is inherently nutrient deficient, or that people really shouldn't even give it a try because you might get a deficiency. There's already enough barriers in the way when a person is on the fence about veganism. When somebody is a non-vegan and they're considering it, there's a bunch of things that just make them not want to do it because, in the moment when you're not a vegan, switching to the vegan lifestyle really seems like a big shift. And hearing about, a big YouTuber having a nutrient deficiency could be enough to convince the person to not even give veganism a try. So because of that, I make these kinds of videos where I try to dispel and analyze what ex-vegans say when it comes to why they're no longer vegan. Now let's get into Rawvana's video.
Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I've been meaning to make this video and talk about this subject for months now. Today I want to talk about how to transition from a plant-based vegan diet to a regular, more balanced diet.
So we are only 15 seconds into the video, and I already have a somewhat issue. The phrase balanced diet is a pretty broad one, but it seems she was implying that a vegan and plant-based diet do not qualify as a balanced diet. Usually in people's heads, when you consider a diet to not be balanced, it gets processed as a diet that is not healthy. So I just want to make it clear to everybody that whatever she meant by balanced, a plant-based vegan diet is capable of producing positive health outcomes and giving you every nutrient that you need.
The other day I posted a photo on Instagram asking you guys if you wanted to see a video of how I transitioned back to incorporating animal protein after being vegan for 6 years, and you said yes, so here I am.
So quick thing that I want to point out here, she says the euphemism animal protein in place of, tortured baby animals when talking about what she's now eating. So every time she says the phrase animal protein, just instead think of animal or dead animal. This is a really good example of how people will use euphemisms to feel better about what they're contributing to.
Today, I'm going to talk about my personal experience. I believe that everyone is different, so take from me what you feel could work for you.
All right, so it's pretty common to hear from an ex-vegan the claim that everybody is different in regards to whether or not everybody's physiology is one which can withstand a fully plant-based diet. Everybody is different is a very broad thing to say, especially in the nutritional science space. And as usual, I'm just going to need evidence of certain people who can only exclusively absorb certain essential nutrients from animals. Until then, I don't know what else to say. And to be clear, I do agree that people's bodies are different and react differently to certain kinds of foods, but I am not convinced that human beings are so different that healthily consuming a plant-based diet is possible for some, but not others.
So to give you a little background, I followed a 100% plant-based diet, vegan diet, for a little over 6 years. And I feel like the first 4 years were good, but the last 2 years, I was really struggling. And it's something that I hadn't even thought of. Maybe my diet is not working for me. And it wasn't until some very close friends of mine who had been vegan for over 8 years told me about their experience of incorporating animal protein back into their diet and how good they were feeling. So some of the symptoms that I was feeling before I went back to eating animal protein were just a lot of bloating, really bad bloating. Anything I ate would make me bloat. I eventually found out that I had SIBO. I also had iron deficiency almost a year, and it didn't matter how many iron supplements I took, I was deficient. So I was borderline, I was basically anemic.
So she says here that she began to get very severe bloating from anything she ate, which she eventually attributed to SIBO, which just stands for small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. She then mentioned that she was extremely anemic and it didn't matter how many iron supplements she took, she would still remain anemic. So one of the symptoms of severe cases of SIBO include malabsorption, which is just when people are unable to absorb nutrients from their diets, such as carbohydrates, fats, minerals, proteins, or vitamins, which in turn can lead to deficiency syndromes, such as anemia, which she said she basically had. Now, this isn't conclusive evidence, but I think there was no coincidence that she was borderline anemic while having SIBO, a condition which, when is severe, can cause malabsorption. I just have to cover this because it's kind of implied that the plant-based diet was the cause of her anemia, when it could have very well been her SIBO. And like I said before at the beginning of this video, people that are on the fence about going vegan can see this and be like, oh, I don't want to have an iron deficiency, so I'm not going to go vegan.
And then a couple of weeks later, I incorporated fish. And fish was fairly easy for me to incorporate because I had been learning about the omega-3s. I had been learning about the benefits for our brain, for our health, the healthy fats.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just Miley Cyrus part 2 basically. Instead of paying for fish to be farmed in horrendous conditions, or for fish to be ripped out of the ocean and murdered, she could just take an algae-based DHA supplement for her omega-3s. Pretty simple. Algae is actually where fish get their DHA anyway, so in taking the supplement, you're taking out the middleman or the fish who would rather not be stabbed.
And then my second year, that's when I started to eat more beef because of the B12. Also, it took me about a year to let go of a lot of the judgment that I had on animal protein. And as I learned more about the benefits, as I learned more about our ancestors and how they lived and how they evolved, I was motivated to start eating more grass-fed beef. So for me, the quality and where I source my food is very important. Of course, there's sometimes when I go out to eat to restaurants and I'm not gonna get super picky, but you know, in my day-to-day, when I'm buying my groceries, the meat that I get is grass-fed, I get wild-caught fish, pasture-raised eggs, all of this. I try to buy local and organic and from the farmer's market and from sustainable and ethical sources.
Okay, so Rawvana says here that she started to eat meat and beef for B12. Obviously, you can get B12 from supplements. You don't need to, pay for innocent cows to be murdered to get B12. And trying to live like our ancestors, like she said, isn't really a good idea. I mean, our ancestors didn't know that much about nutrition. Oh, and this whole thing about eating grass-fed beef and, ethically sourced animal products, obviously it's pretty hard to ethically murder innocent animals who don't want to die. It doesn't matter if the animal is fed grass before having their life taken. There's something wrong with being stabbed, regardless of whether or not you were fed grass. Turns out that feeding an innocent being grass doesn't justify murder, and also raising them in a less confined space than in a factory farm also doesn't justify murdering them. Who knew? Oh, and she also implies that she supports factory farming from time to time when she said that when she goes out to restaurants, she's not that picky.
So for me, the quality and where I source my food is very important. Of course, there's sometimes when I go out to eat to restaurants and I'm not gonna get super picky, but...
Let's just think about this for a second. I mean, she's saying I have ethically sourced food, and now implies that when she goes to a restaurant, she's not that picky and, she'll probably get something and won't actually know if it's ethically source. Judging from Rawvana's past of lying and not coming out as a non-vegan until she was filmed eating fish and also tried to cover it, judging from that, I have a hard time believing that the only time she supports factory farming is when she goes out to dinner and isn't being so picky.
So now a lot of people ask me, what's your diet now? And I don't really have a specific diet. I eat intuitively, but I do try to eat protein in every single meal because I've just felt really, really good. And I feel like this is just part of the journey.
Oh, she said the J word, she said journey. For some weird reason, whenever somebody comes out as ex-vegan, they have to use the word journey as a front for their decision to start paying for murder again. It's like, oh, you know, this is just part of my journey to end the journeys of innocent animals. But don't worry, they're on a grass-fed farm, they're on a local farm, so the murder is happening locally. So yeah, I mean, it's my journey. This is just my journey.
I feel really good. My hair, you guys, my hair has grown back and I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, so I know that my diet now involves paying for the local and ethically sourced exploitation and murder of innocent beings. And I also know that when I go out to restaurants, I'm not so picky and I support factory farming, which is filled with so much suffering. But eating all these innocent animals that didn't want to die has made my hair so amazing. I got my hair back and these animals lost their lives.
Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who's your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid